And we're live back here at the 2012 Mr. Olympia Webcast after the show with a little post-show wrap-up. I'm Lane Norton here with my co-host Larry Pepe. And Larry, what can you say other than, like we talked about, Phil has taken that first step towards building that legacy. Kai came in, nipping at his heels, really pushed him hard. He came out tonight, and you even saw it in his attitude. He was fired up. It almost seemed like he was a little bit angry and just like psyched to come out and try to defend that title. And it showed because he got better and better as he went.
Yeah, I think we saw a different Phil Heath tonight than we saw last night. Last night, when he and Kai went at it at the end of the show, he seemed a little calm. Seemed a little reserved, and tonight it was different. Tonight it was like he was coming out for a prize fight, and Kai had been introduced and was waiting for him in the cage, and he was making his way down to make sure that he was going to put his stamp on this Mr. Olympia. Listen, take nothing away from Kai Green. Kai Green looked fantastic. He looked the best that he's ever looked. I assume he accumulated some votes from the judges. There was a lot of talk after the prejudging, people debating Kai, Phil. And when we did the pre-show, we said, listen, if Phil's not going to win this contest, it's most likely going to be because Phil was off, not because someone else came leaps and bounds and caught up. That wasn't the case. Phil wasn't off at all. He looked fantastic. His conditioning was the same as last year, in my opinion, which for him meant it was perfect. But he was fuller, he was bigger, he was rounder. It looked like a guy who had spent a year getting ready for this contest. Kai Green comes in with no fall off from Phil and makes a contest out of it and made people debate overnight between the prejudging and finals whether Phil Heath was going to get this second Mr. Olympia. Well, he came back tonight like a guy who was fighting for his competitive life. I saw a different fire in Phil. I saw the Phil from last year when he was chasing the title. And, they say sometimes you're not the champ till you defend in combat sports. They say winning it is one thing, defending it is another. And Phil Heath came out here tonight like the champion he is to defend that title and tell everybody, listen, nobody's taking this away from me. I'm Mr. Olympia, and I'm starting a reign. And we'll find out, but we had a contest on our hands.
Certainly, and, it's why in any sport it's so hard to defend. We see it in football. Even in MMA, it's difficult. The light heavyweight title in the UFC got passed around for years because once you win, once you're the champ, there's a target on your back. Everybody's gunning for you. They know what you look like. They know the condition you're going to be in. We saw it with Kai. He knows that Phil comes in shredded, and we saw the best conditioning we've ever seen for Kai. We would be remiss not to talk about the surprise of the show, Sean Roden. We talked a little bit about Sean Roden in the pre-show analysis and said, hey, if there's a guy that's going to make a big jump, it might be him. And sure enough, he lived up to those expectations.
Yeah, big jump is an understatement, right? I mean, we were thinking, hey, this is a guy who can sneak into the top 6. I don't think anybody whose last name isn't Roden who tells you they were thinking that Sean was going to be top 3. I'd put him on a lie detector, and I think they would fail. Sean Roden, last year at this show, said it several times during the broadcast, 11th place last year. He goes from 11th to 3rd. Believe me, that's different than going from 20th to 10th. When you go into top 3, you're in rare air. And look at who he beat to get it. He beat a best we've seen since 2008, Dexter Jackson. Dexter Jackson said at the press conference, this is the best I've looked in years, believe me. But, a lot of guys talk. We've heard it from the best condition of my life. Then they get on stage and you're like, yeah, not so much, right? That wasn't the case. Dexter was prime, but Sean Roden, to me, along with Phil Heath and Kai Green, I mean, we talk about that three-headed monster for next year's Olympia when you add Jay Cutler in. Let's not sleep on Sean Roden, because if Sean Roden continues to improve the way he improved between last year's Mr. Olympia and this year's Mr. Olympia, then we have another guy who's going to be in that mix. Just a fantastic outing for Roden and a fantastic outing for Dexter Jackson.
Absolutely, and not even from last year's Mr. Olympia to now, but from the Arnold Classic to now. People don't realize, because he won 2 shows coming in, he was out of the top 5 at the Arnold Classic. He wasn't even in the discussion, and all of a sudden came out of nowhere and really started making a name for himself. So that's great to see. You mentioned Dexter Jackson. A lot of guys talk, but Dexter really brought it, and rounding out that top 5, we had Branch Warren, and, Branch a little bit off, and we saw it, and I'm sure he'll come back. He's come back from a lot of adversity, and I just heard him backstage, somebody talking to him. I'll bounce back. I always bounce back, and I certainly wouldn't doubt him.
And he does always bounce back, and that's probably the perfect segue to say another guy who bounced back from tremendous disappointment last year, a guy who I thought won the 202 last year in Flex Lewis. I thought he got robbed. I thought it was one of the worst decisions of the weekend, and Flex now joins us as the first 212-pound Olympia champion. Flex, congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, Flex, I've seen you in a lot of contests. You're a very laid-back guy, very nice guy. Fans love you. I saw a different Flex Lewis this week, and I saw you very, very serious, very focused. Did you feel a lot of pressure from last year because so many people thought you should have won? Because I'm sure you felt you should have won. Did you feel that pressure coming here that, man, I've really got to make my stamp this year?
To be honest, I put a lot of pressure on myself anyway. I think the calm Flex Lewis you see is probably the one backstage. In the gym is a different side. Again, I'm very driven. I'm very emotional, aggressive, hungry person in life in general. And when I came off that second place last year, I was honestly, no cliche, I was actually back in the gym the next day training for this first place. And when I tell people, believe in yourself and don't give up on any dreams, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe. I come from somewhere the other side of the world, a country that is very popular in bodybuilding, but there's no pros. And now since I've been flying the flag for the British up there's a lot more British bodybuilders coming through the ranks and believing in themselves that they can actually do damage up on stage. So again, in terms of believing in myself, I trained all year for this. I dreamt, I slept for this first place victory, and again, I left it up to the judges' hands, and today. But I made sure there was no stone unturned. The cliche is, and I'm speechless. I'm going on and on in a circle, guys.
Flex, I got to ask you. Last year, I know you thought you won. I thought you won. I think the consensus off the judges' table was that you won. Take me to the moment when you're standing on stage this year with David Henry. You look like you were about to break up there. Were you having flashbacks of last year? Put me in your head right then when Bob Ciccarello was about to announce the winner.
I think that was the longest pause I have ever experienced in my life. I think I was having flashbacks a little bit, but I was just waiting for the F to come out of Bob's mouth. and when that F was drawn out too. So again, it was, oh wow, I can't even remember my actions. I think I even dropped to the floor. I went paralyzed, again, I'm lost of emotions. I am a mixture of emotions, guys. After last year's second place, I walked and talked like I won it. I wanted to act like I was a champion. And what happens is the mind is a powerful tool. And in doing so, it reflected in my training, in my dieting. And going into this show, it was the best prep ever. It was the best prep ever. And I never had any problems of old that I've experienced. And I think just that was down to, again, having that mindset going in that I wasn't going to, there was nothing going to get in my way. Nothing going to get in my way. And, I'm here now, guys, doing this interview with you with this gold thing around me. I hope it's not chocolate. No, but in all jokes aside, I'm very privileged to be the first 212 champion. And again, guys, I just want to fly the flag and represent